Hi, and welcome to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, joined by a very special guest co-host, His Worship, Mayor Adam Lorden. Welcome, Adam.
Good afternoon, Vero. Nice to be back with you yet again.
In the new year.
Here we go. First visit of 2024.
I know. And you're such a great friend of the show, and we always love to have you. And, unfortunately, Judy had other activities planned for today, so wasn't able to join us, but always glad to be in the seat next to you.
Well, likewise. And look, we're so in sync already for 2024, we're matching. So.
I know, and we didn't do it on purpose. We didn't coordinate beforehand, but it's good. It's good. And it's hard to believe that here we are, January 2024.
Yes.
I don't know how we got here or how we're going to navigate January 45th, but anyway, that's okay. But you actually have our quote today.
I've been instructed to read the quote.
Read the quote.
And also, it's not a conventional quote.
No.
But a success note, it's called.
Yes.
So it's 6 items that someone, the author, surmises are keys to success.
Yeah.
So I'll read them out to you and then we'll chew on them.
Sounds good.
Okay. So it says, work hard. Successful people are not gifted, they just work hard. Mm-hmm. Dream big, be happy, never give up, be positive, and believe in yourself.
Holy cow.
So there's a lot of positive affirmation there.
Well, and
what do you think?
Well, so I've always felt that if I worked hard enough and long enough, good things would happen, right? So because most of us aren't gifted with a lot of things, right? So most of us are never going to be NBA or NHL or MLB players, right? So, but if you work hard at what you want to do and think that you could be good at, you can get there. Not necessarily like the NBA, but you know what I mean.
But you could.
You could.
I'm of that mind. I think first of all, anybody who's successful, there has to be hard work involved. Yeah. There is no such thing as any type of success in anything without hard work. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes, too, there are external factors that a little bit of luck, a little bit of where did you end up in that life lotto in some of your circumstances?
Absolutely.
So, to me, those that really make it quite far in any context, there's an element of catching some breaks, but unquestionably there's got to be hard work, too.
Yeah, and I truly agree, right? And I think there's some legendary coaches out there that have said, hard work will beat natural talent any day, right? Because the more you put into it and work at it, you can be very naturally talented or gifted and not put the effort in and not necessarily get where you probably could have, right? But if you do put your heart and soul, as they say, into it, you'll get there.
There you go. And I mean, the rest, I think dreaming big is always good advice. Yeah. I was always told by my mom, again, with hard work and determination, I could do whatever I'd like. And I always share that message when I'm speaking to youth, when I'm down at the high schools or with the Mayor's Youth Action Committee or in any context, I would give the same advice and never give up and be positive, believe in yourself. These are all, I think, good things to aspire to.
Yeah, and so I think too when you think about believe in yourself, it's sometimes that's really hard, right? Because you're like, I don't, I'm not really good at it, or I don't know what I'm doing yet, or I'm not the smartest in the room, or whatever it may be. But again, if you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, you learn what they have to teach you.
Well, and to me, that's the mark of someone, a successful person, is that they are not threatened. Absolutely. By other people's capabilities or intelligence. In fact, they're inspired by it. Yeah. So rather than pushing away people that might have something to add, to surround yourself with those people. Yeah. I always want to hear all of the advice and the thoughts and use that to arrive at a decision rather than pushing away things that I may not agree with. To me, you've got to hear all of it in order to really make your informed decision.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So anyway, great quote. Love it.
There we go.
Good to keep in mind as we plow through, New Year's resolutions. Don't love the idea of a New Year's resolution, but just things we want to focus on.
Well, also I would say, I don't know if it was intentional, but using the expression plow through now that we've finally had a couple of snowfalls in the last couple of weeks. Felt like we were waiting along for a very long time, a green Christmas, first green Christmas in a while, waiting for some of that snow to come. Now, I'm one of those folks that, I'm not going to say I love winter,
Yep.
but I have in recent times chosen to embrace winter.
Yep.
And I don't mind it for, there'll be a certain point coming at the end of February where we'll be ready for it all to go away.
Done.
But
Yeah.
I am currently in that, that January, February, all right, let's embrace it and have some fun with it mode.
Yeah.
And you're right, coming out of the holidays, which was great. I hope you had a nice time. So it's nice to have a little break, recharge the batteries, see some family and friends. To me, actually taking the time to have that break, but really to enjoy being around my family and friends and using that to recharge myself this year was something I took extra care to do, maybe more so than in the past.
Yeah.
And it worked to, coming into January. It's been it's a heavy time in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that we've still got a lot of that. It doesn't go away when the calendar changes, but I'm hopeful that we're all coming into the new year a bit refreshed and ready to keep going.
Well, 2023 was such a busy year, I found. It was right from January 1st until December 31st. It just seemed like there was always something on the go, and it's something that I love about our city and our region here, is that there is always something to do. January tends to be a bit of a long month and a heavy month, although we didn't get the snow this year, which is I'm okay with. But I found 2023 was so full.
Yeah.
That once I hit December 24th at 5 o'clock, it felt like I needed a good break.
Well, it's interesting, I guess, to me, and maybe it's just always easy to, see the one that's right in front of you, but they all inevitably end up pretty busy.
Yeah, true
and
enough.
I don't know if it's just the kind of person I am. Maybe it's occupational hazard being in this
True
role
enough.
and in my personal work and film and television too. I'm the kind of guy that if the plate's not full after about a week, I'm going to look to fill it anyway.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
but so hopefully though, I think sometimes it's felt like in 2023, it might have been full, not necessarily with things we wanted it to be full with.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the difference. So
yeah, it was a bit tougher, I think, in some cases. Not the whole year, but there was a couple months there where I found it a bit tougher, for sure. Yeah. So busy weekend.
This weekend?
It was a very busy weekend. So you and I, for the first time on Saturday, were out on the trails. The ATV and side-by-side trails, which was so interesting. It was very exciting for both of us, and it was a perfect day for it. But we ended up getting to be present for the opening of the new bridge that connected two trails, so which made even more options for our local ATV club. Well, actually, any ATV club.
Well, that's right. And, I guess, we've seen in the last few years this huge increase in, I won't say ATV activity, but before it was always a lot of four-wheelers.
Right.
And now it seems like they're all using side-by-sides.
Right.
And there is a huge presence in the community. The local Miramichi Outback Trail Runners is the ATV association locally. And they from all around the province. It's big business in the province. And, we support it here in the city. Of course, we recently passed our bylaw to allow ATVs to come down into the city on select roads to access services. We've been working with them for a while. And so, we went out, got ourselves into the side-by-sides, courtesy of MLA Conroy, who drove us out. Of course, our colleague, Councillor Ross Robinson's big in that community. So is MLA Conroy.
Yes.
And an incredible turnout. I don't know where people were coming from, but they just kept coming. Hundreds of people out.
From everywhere.
In the woods. And this bridge, of course, we know will connect two big trails connecting sort of the Highway 11 side of Miramichi over to Rogersville, which I guess was something that they've been working on for a while. So kudos to all involved. And
Minister Régent Savoy was with us as well. It was his first time out on a side-by-side, or in a side-by-side, not out on. But anyway, doesn't matter. Y'all know what I was talking about. In a side-by-side. And so, the four of us got to travel together, and I wore the handy-dandy helmet. It was great. But yeah, amazing turnout for the new bridge that connects, both trails, and supported by Quad MB and I think the province and the federal government.
I believe Minister Savoy was telling me they were using some of the what used to be called the gas tax fund, so the Canada Community Building Fund. So it's federal money distributed by the province.
Perfect. Yeah.
Not to get too wonky on everybody.
No, listen, it was supported, which was great, right? So, and we got to see that, and as you said, there was a couple hundred people out there for sure, and very exciting day, and beautiful trails, great weather. Definitely enjoyed it, and would do it again.
Well, I'm gonna pivot now too, because we were doing that Saturday, and then Sunday I was out on an entirely different set of beautiful trails.
Right.
And so Evan and I, yesterday was our first time out this year at the Miramichi Cross Country Ski Club. And it's something that we do at least a couple times every winter, and I absolutely love it. We've got to give credit to the Miramichi Cross Country Ski Club. That facility that they have there, which of course was built way back in the day, the REPAP days, in fact, actually. That was a community initiative that they led. But these trails are world class, as good as anywhere. Some of the best in Atlantic Canada. And although we've again just recently gotten that snow, so not all the trails were open, but a lot of them were, and it was the perfect weather conditions, the perfect temperatures to just be, and I just love it. Being out in the woods, it's physical activity, it's great for mental health, and a little bit less people around, I guess, than the day before. But I think both activities, there's a lot of value and excitement in the community. We're lucky to have vibrant communities in both regards. But we had coincidentally been out there the exact day 6 years ago, so it was
I saw that on your social media. Yeah, I saw that on your social media. And phenomenal that those organizations are run by volunteers, right? Like the grooming takes hours after a storm, and I've been out snowshoeing on those trails, not this year yet, but I hope to. Well, obviously it's the beginning of winter for us, so I will get out there before the end of this winter. But just a phenomenal organization with the Miramichi Cross Country Ski Club.
And the last thing I'll say on that, because it is a great family activity too. And once again, I think this is the third or fourth year in a row, there's been an anonymous donation to cover the cost of renting the skis. Amazing. So for us, it's $10 for an adult, $5 for children to go out and spend all day on the trails, and the equipment rentals are totally free. So it's a great family activity. And low cost as well.
Yeah, and I love that, that somebody has done that. That's incredible, actually, that they have continued to do that. And it really enables anybody to go out and enjoy it. But also a very exciting time on the weekend for the business community.
Yes.
So the Greater Miramichi Chamber of Commerce had their awards gala on Saturday night. And wonderful to see the awards that they handed out. So we'll talk about them, actually. So the Community Impact Award went to Carrefour Beausoleil. So the community center portion, because there's of course the community center and the school, both parts of Carrefour. So the Community Impact Award went to Carrefour. The Young Entrepreneur to C Price Construction. We've seen lots of great things from them.
That's Cole Price. Yeah.
Yep, Cole Price. Yep. And Small Business Award went to McCullum's Building Supplies, and we hear about them all the time on the radio. Love their ads. Large Business Award went to Terrio and Hashi Pete Moss. And then last but not least, the Newcomer Award went to the Travelodge.
There wasn't that long ago where you might not have even been able to have a newcomer business award, and yet now we see more of that all the time. And it's fantastic to know that there's a pool that needs to be chosen from. And quite honestly, it's fantastic to see the awards coming back. So over the last couple of years, they've continued to give them out, but since COVID, they haven't had the physical gathering to do so. And it's so great to see the physical gatherings coming back in every sense, in every community organization, but especially I think for the business community, because again, we know that it's a tough time in some ways with inflation, the affordability issues, challenges that we're having. We feel that with the business we do at council too, but at the same time, over the last few years in Miramichi, our population is growing again. We're seeing really high levels of development. We're seeing businesses expanding and innovating, succession planning happening, new people taking over businesses. And, basically collectively, these winners are capturing a lot of that energy and excitement. And so to have the business community in a room, and unfortunately, I know neither of us was able to make it this year. I was out of town, and personal work too, but but it's great to see that it's happening. I did send in a congratulatory message, and we want to celebrate local business success stories.
Yeah.
We know these days, especially on social media, people aren't shy to talk about some of the things they don't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really important to take the time to celebrate successes and achievements locally. So congratulations again to all the winners.
It was exciting to see, and so many of the businesses, they do so much for the community as well as, run their business. And I had a family commitment on the weekend, so it was unfortunately one of those things that I had to miss, but really glad to see the recipients get their awards. So coming up very soon, Susan Butler is going to be having one of her spectacular events, as she always does. So the White Gold Dinner and Concert coming up on February 11th at the Kin Center. So we know everything that Susan does is top notch and always sells out. So don't wait too long to get your tickets. So tickets are $40. So dinner will be at 5 p.m. followed by a show, which includes the Villagers, Jimmy Lawler, Susan herself. So always spectacular, and others. So you can get a hold of Susan at 622-1780 or Susan Butler, all lowercase, at Explornet, XPLORNET.com to get tickets and get them soon because they will sell out.
Well, and to your point, Susan always puts on an incredible show. The entertainment is always great.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the annual Christmas to Remember concert, which she used to host with former Mayor Jerry Cormier, and now she's carried that on.
Yes, beautiful.
And they had just a wonderful group of performances, familiar faces like the Villagers and Jimmy Lawler, and they had some new ones this year too, which was really nice. But you can rest assured, if Susan's putting on a show, the food's going to be great. The entertainment's going to be great. You won't be disappointed.
Always, always, always. So, looking forward to that evening. So, we're coming up to break. We have a very full show to get through together, so don't go too far. We'll talk all things Alzheimer's, actually, for Alzheimer's Awareness Month this month. It is a January Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and you and I, and of course the rest of our colleague counselors, had our Forget Me Not on at council the other night in honor of that month. And of course, I think most of you know that I've been touched personally by it. So we're going to talk about all the things that matter around that. So go grab a snack, go grab a hot beverage, and we'll see you right after our break. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, joined, of course, by my wonderful co-host, His Worship, Mayor Adam Lorden.
Great to be here.
I know, so excited, so excited. So we're about to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. Most of our viewers know that I've been navigating this journey with my mom for the last 4 years. Some days I can talk about it like it's nothing. Other days, of course, I get super emotional because she is my best friend. And it's a super tough disease to navigate. But we are so glad to have you both here to help us kind of wander through all of those questions that we have, right? Because a lot of people are touched in some way by Alzheimer's or dementia, through a loved one, through a family member, through friends of the family, whatever it may be. And as we mentioned just before in our opening segment, January is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and so I love the Forget Me Not. We had it on the other night at council, so I have about 4 of them spread all over my house so that I can grab one as I go. But just a great opportunity for us to really navigate through. So a lot of information, right? And a lot of tough information. But we're so glad to be joined today by Jenna Whiffen, who is the link coordinator for the Alzheimer's Association of New Brunswick here in Miramichi. Yes. So glad to have you. And Dr. Michelle Casey, who is the Mint. And just correct me when I get this wrong, but you are the doctor at the Mint Memory Clinic that is located inside the Marjorie E. Loge Geriatric Clinic.
That's absolutely right.
Perfect. So most people would know, of course, that Marjorie was my grandmother. And the clinic opened last year now it had been open for quite a while, but we officially did the ribbon cutting last year in October. And I got to talk all about my grandmother, Margie, as we called her in those later years, because Grandma didn't understand grandma at one point, right? She didn't understand what grandma meant, and so we called her Margie. She knew what her name was, but she didn't know that she was either grandma or mom. And so we called her Margie for a long time.
And that's real because your grandmother also had Alzheimer's,
she did,
correct?
Yeah. So my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. So it's been a long journey in our family. But we are so glad to have all of you here. And so, Jenna, I'll get you to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Jenna Whiffen. I'm born in Moncton, but raised in Miramichi. And I just kind of joined the Alzheimer's Society almost a year ago. And I'm very, very passionate about it, as Dr. Casey can attest to. Love helping people. Especially, Miramichi, there's a large population of people who are, going through this dementia journey. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
We're very excited to have you here. And Dr. Casey, tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So I'm from Rogersville, so born and raised, and grew up in Rogersville, did my medical studies in Laval, and then my residency in Moncton, and then my husband and I, who's my high school sweetheart, we went to Ontario for a few years, just like you did.
Yes.
Right? For school, and then we've been back since a year and a half ago. We've been back home, and so happy to be back.
Wonderful.
Well, we're glad to have you both now in the Miramichi region.
Yes.
Welcome home. It's always nice when we can come home, right?
It's nice to come back home, absolutely. And our kids get to spend a lot more time with family.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes such a difference.
It makes a huge difference.
And Jenna, you are, we're glad to have you in Miramichi now.
Yeah.
Just up the road from Moncton.
Yeah.
We're going to start with maybe asking you a few questions.
Sure, yes.
And I'm wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about your role as a link coordinator with the Alzheimer's Association of New Brunswick. So what does that involve, being a link coordinator with the Alzheimer's Association, and of course being home-based here at the clinic in Miramichi?
Yeah, so I work 3 days a week alongside Dr. Casey and the rest of our team. But being a first link coordinator, we're like the first point of contact. So if Dr. Casey or any other healthcare professional refers to us, a first link coordinator handles those phone calls, which can be, it's not only phone calls, it's in person too. We do virtual, we do emails, any way that they're comfortable reaching out, and we let them know about our programs, our services, and we give them a bundle of information, especially at the clinic. So everyone who comes in and leaves with a diagnosis leaves with a lot of information that can kind of help explain kind of what's going on and what to expect. And that's kind of like the first link job.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an important one.
It is.
Because, I would imagine for people, like any sort of disease, and I don't have familiar experience with Alzheimer's, but I do, of course, with cancer, and my mom too, but there's a lot of nervousness, right? And to feel comfortable to reach out, like people are uneasy, and it's an uneasy time, and so
it's very overwhelming.
it's probably quite important. You're the first one they'll talk to.
Yeah.
That's going to set the tone for that journey. So you've got to make sure people feel comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable, very welcomed and supported, because we do follow them along their whole dementia journey. So we want that to look as positive as possible given the circumstances.
Wonderful. Talk to us a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association and its mandate. So what does the Alzheimer's Association do?
So we do a whole variety of things, but our vision is, like we discussed earlier, a world without dementia, right? That is the end goal, like whether it's a cure, whether we can figure out, what exactly causes it and we can stop it before it happens. That is our vision, but our mission is to, support where we can, to fundraise, because that's where, the research and things all behind the scenes go on, but really providing that support to people living with dementia, to their families, to friends, healthcare providers, just neighbors, right? Like anyone who is willing to listen and to kind of absorb that information is always one step closer.
So can you give us some examples of what resources and services are available to families through the Alzheimer's Association?
So we have a slew of them. We have the Alzheimer Info Line, which is a toll-free number And anyone in New Brunswick can call that number Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, I do believe. If you have questions, concerns, are looking for information, are looking for where to turn, like if you're trying to get into the Mint Clinic, like you can call that number and we can like provide that information. We offer Minds in Motion program, and that's for people actually living with dementia early to mid stage. And it's a physical activity and it's a mental and social stimulation. Now, unfortunately, right now, everything is over Zoom.
Okay.
But we are hoping in the next couple months to get a couple programs up and running in the Miramichi because there's such a need for it. Yeah. And not everyone has access to Zoom or a computer, right? Like it's with like the generation that we're working mostly with. Yeah. So that's a really fun one. People really seem to enjoy it. We do the virtual caregiver support network, but hoping to have one in person as well. And that's just for caregivers, friends, and family who just need a little extra support and want to bounce things off each other and see like if there's any tools, tips and tricks that like have worked for other people that might work for them. Really beneficial as well. And then we do coffee and chat once a month. It's virtual as well, and that's where the person living with dementia can grab a cup of coffee, sit back in the morning, and talk about anything. It could be the weather. It could be, what happened with sports. So it's very directed towards, just keeping them involved with community and friends if they can't get out. Mm-hmm. And up in Tracadie, we have a pilot program right now. It's called the Memory Cafe. And people living with dementia, their family and friends, can go there, and it's like a fun little activity. You can learn about different things, learn about dementia, just kind of talk to like-minded individuals, see what's going on. And people are really, really liking that. So that would be interesting too if we could get one of those up and running here.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we have a Facebook group.
Okay.
For people living with dementia and their families. Yeah.
Well, and it can feel, just from my own experience, it can feel very lonely.
Yeah.
To have a family member or to be caring for a family member with Alzheimer's or dementia. And one of the things that I found very tough is because I was mom's primary caregiver for 4 years, is in those moments where I was tired and cranky and ended up tired and cranky with mom. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, so I love the idea of being able to talk to other caregivers and have,
Yeah, and then
bounce off those experiences.
And the First Link coordinators, everyone's always able to just call if you need to vent, right? Mm-hmm. And we do offer telecounseling and psychotherapy as well, which is free for family members. Yeah. So yeah.
That's really interesting because I would imagine, and you have the experience as you're saying, Vero, like, when you go through it, there needs to be that care and support for the patient, but also for the family. Like, it's an incredibly difficult, emotional time, challenging time, and you want to be there for your loved one, and you want to have an understanding of what, the changes might look like. Yeah. And to me, to be able to have access through your network to families who have been there before, like that, to me, that peer-to-peer opportunity would be really invaluable because it can feel quite lonely, but others have gone through it and probably would have some nice advice to share with you.
Exactly. Yeah. You're exactly right. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and listen, I've got wonderful supportive family, but mom lived with me, right? So it was 24/7. And some days I was just like, I don't know how we're going to keep doing this because she hasn't slept, right? And I haven't slept consequently, But it's, I love, and there's a couple people that have navigated that journey with their own family members that would reach out from time to time to me, which was wonderful. And since I started sharing Mom's Journey, I started sharing Mom's Journey after she went into full-time care in October. More people have reached out and, starting to realize that, so many people face the same thing and that you're not alone, because it feels very much like that often. But it's been an interesting part of the journey to actually have people to share it because I didn't for a long time, because I didn't want people to think differently about mom. Yeah. But just in the last 6 months, before mom went in the last 6 months, I started telling our neighbors, so that in case mom got away from me, that they would spot her and bring her home if I had to, that kind of thing. So started telling more people because I wanted her to be safer.
Yeah, the stigma is still very much there, but we're really trying to break that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
that people feel more welcome to talk about their challenges.
Yeah.
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 I'm curious too, Jenna, like, so, your program, the LINK program, which is sort of run by the Alzheimer's Association of New Brunswick, and around the province. And how do you sort of collaborate with other organizations? Or, just getting a sense from chatting with you two before we came on that here, there's some sort of collaboration or partnership with the Mint Memory Clinic, and we're going to chat more about that after the break with you, Dr. Casey. But how does that interface, or how do you collaborate with other groups as well to further help people?
So when we talk to clients, patients, and things like that, everyone has a unique need, right? So as we continue to discuss things, and it progresses through the whole journey, like those needs can change and whatnot, but we will often refer to things like Meals on Wheels, right? When they're no longer making food for themselves and family might not be close by to drop meals off. It's a really good alternative. We do refer to the Adult Day program as well, because it's 7 days a week, right? So that's a really beneficial program.
I didn't realize the program was 7 days a week.
Yeah, that's what they.
Interesting.
That's what they said. Well, I went to a nursing home without walls.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Friday.
and we were talking about that there. And so that's another wonderful program
Yeah.
that we've now started referring to,
Yeah.
right? Anything to help people in their homes and keep them there as long as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do a lot of referring out. We work a lot with different organizations and work a lot with Mint. Yeah.
Perfect. Any upcoming events or initiatives? One to either raise awareness or even funds for Alzheimer's?
So right now, because it is Alzheimer Awareness Month, we're doing Light It Up in Blue. So we've been trying to kind of get that rolling, and it's just kind of to draw awareness to kind of what's going on with Alzheimer's and with different dementias, and just raise awareness. And then we're always looking for, donations, volunteers, things like that, and you can donate online. Things like, there's always something going on, and it's usually monthly. There's a new awareness campaign, but yeah, this month it's Lighted Up in Blue.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Jenna, and just, maybe back to that initial starting point for a lot of families, maybe when they realize that they have a loved one who has been diagnosed, but they may be hesitant for some reason to reach out and access that support. What advice would you have, or what would you say to encourage people to, maybe take that plunge, if you would, to reach out and access some of that support that might be available to them?
Well, the support is there. There's no doubt about that. And I know a lot of people, they think that maybe it's lacking. The reaching out is the hardest part. And for the First Link program, we can actually reach out if someone like a family or friend refers us to, right? Wow, so we won't cold call or anything like that. But if there's concerns, like, we can reach out and check in and things like that, which helps a lot too.
Wow. Okay. So then also, like, I may be able to reach out to you and say, I know someone who's going through this challenge.
It's very overwhelming. Right? So a lot of people, when they're overwhelmed, the last thing they want to do is pick up the phone and call the Alzheimer's Society of New Brunswick and say, what's up? Right? That's not what they're looking to do. But the support is there, and we are wanting to help in any way that we can. And there's no silly questions about anything Alzheimer's dementia related. Like, we're here to support in any way possible.
So we have a couple minutes till we head to break, so it's hard to believe it went that fast. But for viewers that want to get involved in support, how do they do that?
Donate your time. We're always looking for volunteers, especially where we're starting to bring programs to the Miramichi region in person. We can't do it without volunteers. We need them to help with client programs, for fundraising, for the walk that's coming up as well. So we can't do it without volunteers. So volunteer your time, donate when you can, as little, doesn't matter. Just donate, volunteer, and help raise awareness. If you can't donate anything of monetary value, your time is appreciated.
Yeah, actually, just on that note, just before we go to break, there will be an Alzheimer's Awareness Walk at the end of May, organized by Pat King.
Yeah.
And looking forward to that, actually.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. So we just have one last minute before we go to break. So any last thoughts for people out there?
No, just please reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if someone you know is struggling, reach out. We are always willing to help.
I think too, what you just said, Jenna, to quickly reaffirm it, like, especially these days, it's tough financially for a lot of people, but giving a donation of your time
It helps.
and support is perhaps in
Yes.
some ways even more important.
It
Not
is.
more important, but as important as a financial donation.
You can be donated all the money in the world. If you don't have people to volunteer their time, what's that going to do? Right?
Absolutely. So we're going to be right back after our break. We have so much more to cover with Dr. Casey, so don't go too far. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, joined, of course, by my wonderful co-host, His Worship Mayor Adam Lorden.
Here we are.
It's been a full show
Yet
so
again.
far. I know,
Yes.
and here we are. I hope you had a good snack, because, we all need good snacks. So we've had a very informative show so far. We were just joined by Jenna Whiffen from the Alzheimer's Society of New Brunswick, located here in Miramichi, for the First Link Coordinator program. And now we are joined, Dr. Michelle Casey was on set with us as we started the last segment, but we're going to talk so much more to her about all of the work that she is doing with the MINT Memory Care Clinic, located in the Marjorie Eleanor Loge Geriatric Clinic here at the Miramichi Hospital. So welcome.
Thank you.
Back to this segment, and to you, Dr. Casey. So we are so pleased to have you joining us today.
It's a pleasure being here.
And thank you for all the work that you're doing, both of you, in relation to Alzheimer's and dementia. It's often a misunderstood disease, but so critical, especially as our population continues to age. And we talked a bit off the air about my own journey, of course, but also the fact that I'm truly hopeful that there will be a cure coming soon, because with such a strong family history for me, I feel like it's inevitable. And so I would like to hope that before we get there, that we'll have a cure for it, or at least some mitigating factors happening. So Dr. Casey, talk to us about the MINT Memory Clinic and how it differs from traditional memory care clinics.
Yes, so absolutely. So that's a great question. And we're hearing about the MINT Clinic more and more now. But MINT, what it stands for, and I think that's important to know, right? It's multi-specialty. Interprofessional team is what it stands for.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But I think the most important thing to remember from that is we are a team of different specialty working together. And this is what makes a big difference than going to a specialist or to being referred by your family physician to different specialty in different locations and then trying to do it all separately, right? So at the MINT Clinic, when patients and their loved ones come, they're seeing all the different specialty together at the same time on that first visit when they come. And that makes a big difference. They're seeing a team. They're not just seeing somebody from the Alzheimer's Society or an OT or a nurse. They're seeing a group of people who's there for them.
So it's kind of like a one-stop shop of any and every type of expertise that they may be needing to access.
Yes.
Right? I mean, this seems, I guess, to a degree obvious, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to expand on that and just sort of explain to us, how does that integrated model offer, a better access to service for folks than, maybe having to go and do everything separately?
Yes. So I think having everybody there together really makes the world of a difference, right? I mean, as a family physician, I work at the MINT Clinic, but before I also had my just traditional family practice, right? And it's very interesting because when I could see people in the MINT Clinic, I was able to treat them so much differently than coming into the 10 to 15 minute visit appointment, right? So I think there's a big time constraint, but also as family physician in my office, I would have to refer to one person for cognitive testing or have them come back later. And it just took a lot of time to do what we can do in one visit, right?
And when you're dealing with,
Yeah.
with your health or the health of a loved one, time is outcomes sometimes.
Time matters.
So
It absolutely does, yes. And for family physicians who don't have those allied health, right, even if it would take a little bit longer and have a referral to a specialist, right, we know that takes a long time, right? Referral to specialty can take a year, sometimes 2 years.
Yep.
And that's a long time waiting and not knowing what to do.
Yep.
So when we're looking at a primary care level, we can get people in faster. And that means earlier diagnosis and earlier care and supporting the family much, much sooner in the process as well, if it is dementia.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is a memory clinic in some form, but not everybody who comes to the memory clinic does have dementia or Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the things, I did a lot of things wrong and, some things right, but one of the things that I did I did a lot of research.
Yes.
Especially when, a new stage of mums would pop up or her behavior would change. I would Dr. Google is never great, but I would always find though an article that I could read or that it would direct me to, so to try and help me understand how best to cope with mom's symptoms, because one of the ones that, is when she would tell me that she, saw the little children or whatever, was not to argue with her, redirect if I could, but not to argue with her, because all that did was make her very upset. And then she wouldn't talk to me about it, as we progressed. So I, going along with her sometimes was
Roll
best.
with it.
And I joke about the fact that she said that we had, 6 children that lived with us, and so at one point I said, Mom, they gotta go. I can't afford to feed them. And she's like, no, they gotta stay. And then she wanted us to fast for Ramadan with them. And I'm like, nope, they don't expect that. We're not gonna do that one today. But sometimes not knowing where to find that information too is really tough on the families. But when you talk about the MINT team, what types of healthcare providers are part of that team? Absolutely,
that's a great question. So typically when we have a nurse or an LPN, we have an OT, so an occupational therapist. Some teams have social worker. We're blessed to have Jenna from the Alzheimer's Society, and then there's myself. And that's who the patients are seeing at that time at a primary care level, right? Mm-hmm. There are times where sometimes we need to have the expertise of a specialist, and we're very fortunate being at the Marjorie Loza Geriatric Clinic, because we have amazing geriatrician with us.
Yes, I've heard that.
As well, right? So when there are questions and when we need that extra support, we have it right here in Miramichi. Mm-hmm. So we are very fortunate to have this beautiful team with us.
Wow.
Yes.
I love it.
Now, what could somebody expect during their visit to the memory clinic in terms of that assessment and diagnosis process? So, I guess maybe walk us through, if I've decided that it's time and we need to reach out. What does it look like when we come in? Yeah.
So, typically we get a referral from the family physician. That referral, I would say half and half, comes either by request of the family of the patients, and often a lot the patient themselves, right? They're wondering, they're worried, is this part of normal aging? Is it not, right? And sometimes it is. It's just normal aging and we just need to reassure. But what happens when they come into the clinic is they're usually greeted by a receptionist, but then there's a nurse or an LPN who'll come and get the patients and the family member and bring them to a room, and that's where they'll go over the family history, over the medication, right? Get a bit of an idea, who is these people in front of us, right? Mm-hmm. Do we live alone or in an apartment? Do we have family? Just that good sense of who this person is and what the challenges are. And after we get that history, then typically we will have the patients go with either a nurse or an OT, the occupational therapist, and they're going to have a frailty check. So we're going to get them to walk and check their strength and do some cognitive testing, which is some paper tests. And during that time, the caregivers usually spends a bit of time with Jenna. And that's when Jenna can get that corroborative history, right? See what's working, see what's not working. Is there any challenges, right, that the patient or their family members are facing? Is there ways that we can help? And usually after that time, the patient, the family member, we get them together, they get a bit of a snack, they can stretch their legs, and it gives me time to go over everything that we've found, and then I can go meet the family and the patient and make a plan. And get a direction.
No joke. And I mean, we've all said it, right? I forget this. Oh my gosh. Oh, here comes the Alzheimer's, right?
Yes.
Because, but it's a fear I think we all probably have is that, oh, I'm getting forgetful. It must be either, you know, at my age, early onset, Alzheimer's or dementia, or, you know, so, but it's, we all have those moments. We all have that joke, right?
Those brain fart moments.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not though, right? And that's I love the fact that you just highlighted that when you reach out to the clinic, it may not be.
It may not be. Or it can be something else that's causing trouble with memory.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good amount of patients who comes in with concerns themselves and worried about, is this what's happening, right? Am I getting Alzheimer's? Am I getting dementia? And it's not always.
Yeah.
I think so much of the challenge, the anxiety around when something in you know, because usually we know when something's not right in our body or with a loved one, but we may not be able to know what. And I think, you know, putting ourselves into these scenarios where we Google it and convince ourselves is not helpful.
It's not good.
One way or another. And so much of the anxiety often is in the not knowing.
Yes.
And so, you know, I think it's helpful to sort of say, just because you might forget something doesn't mean you should assume you're going here, but, you know, why don't play it out, reach out to the Mint Clinic, and that way you'll know one way or another. And if it is dementia or Alzheimer's, then you're already plugged in with the experts who are going to help to create, you know, that plan moving forward for you. And I guess that, you know, those leads me to the next question of, okay, well, if you've had somebody in for an assessment, you know, how does the Mint Memory Clinic support patients and families after a dementia diagnosis?
That is really the most important thing. And honestly, I think that's one of the first questions is, what's a Mint Clinic and what does it do differently? And I think this is one of the things that we do very differently, is we're there not just for the patient, but for the caregiver, right? I think this is not something that anybody can do alone. This is often a disease that affects the whole family, right? Medically or not. So it's supporting the patient and supporting the family. But I mean, earlier on, these patients, that's just forgetting little words, right? I mean, the biggest thing for them is to really keep them engaged and continue their activities, because we've got people and they come and they're afraid to go have coffee with the boys, right? Because they're ashamed that they're forgetting words or losing their train of thoughts from time to time. And as early as that is when we can start helping, right? We've got a lot of tools and tricks on how to help them that earlier on. And then later on, mostly tools and trips for them, but also for the family, right? Keeping people engaged, keeping their independence and keeping people home, right? People want to stay home as long as possible. And we do our best with a lot of the tools that Jenna had mentioned earlier on to be able to do that.
Well, and I didn't realize, I'll be honest, and I mean, you would think I would know a lot about our health system, but in this particular case, I didn't realize actually, like, the role that social development also plays. So when my family finally convinced me that it was time for Mom to go into full-time care, because I was like, well, I can just keep doing it, I'm fine, you know, it doesn't matter that I haven't slept in 4 years, I'll sleep eventually. But when, you know, our primary healthcare, my uncle, finally convinced me that really Mom needed to go into full-time care, social development came to do the assessment on her, and she didn't do the assessment on Mom because Mom would have said she was fine, right? She couldn't but really at that point, when they did the assessment, Mom was deemed to need the highest level of care at that point, and then we still did keep her home for another 7 months. But I didn't realize the role that they play, or the support even that they provided to me. It was amazing, right? And so there are so many different aspects, and you two are 2 prime examples that none of us knew were out there, but provide such support to families and things like that. But one of the things that we did do, and you mentioned it, I took Mom everywhere. Didn't matter what Dad or I were doing, she came with us, and people would recognize at times that she was a little blank, but really she stayed probably connected for as long as she possibly could, because we literally took her everywhere with us, because I knew at some point I wouldn't be able to do that anymore. But it also gave me an opportunity, and for families out there, gave me an opportunity to have all those memories with her that, long after she's forgotten them, for me, they'll stick with me, right? But, what a wonderful support you all are. And I wish I was a little bit more aware earlier, but that's okay, of what you do. And, thank you for the work that you're doing. It's amazing.
If I could ask a question to you, just to provide some context, like this idea of the Mint Memory Clinic, and I think we're seeing this more and more in the healthcare practice, is more a team approach, right? Even with family medicine, for example. Absolutely. And the Mint Memory Clinic, is this something that is in hospitals around the province now, or is it in Miramichi only, or?
So as today, only in Miramichi for New Brunswick. So we're the first one in the East Coast, actually. This is a project that started in Ontario over a decade ago. And when I was working in Ontario, I had the opportunity to be part of a Mint team. And just loved it. Amazing. Loved what we were able to do. And coming home, really wanted to be able to bring this back. So with the help of Linda Lee, who is the doctor in Ontario who created this program, we were able to do some sites here on the East Coast. But there's over 100 Mint clinics across Canada now. Wow. Typically in family physician's office, a few in hospitals like us here.
Well, and I know you got to wrap us up here. I'm going to quickly say, thank you for that, Dr. Casey. And it's so important to acknowledge the innovation that is happening in our healthcare system, and on the ground especially. And this is, did we hear her say, Miramichi is the only one in New Brunswick, and
in the East Coast.
In the East Coast. So we've got to give a lot of credit to those of you on the ground making it happen. There are fair criticisms in other areas of the system, but I think often we don't realize that there are some really innovative, good things happening in the system at the same time. And so it's awesome that you were both able to come and bring some light to that today.
Absolutely.
So we're all done for today. Hard to believe it went by that quick, but be on the lookout for more information about the walk coming up in May. We'll talk about that. But thank you to Jenna Whiffen and Dr. Michelle Casey for joining us today. And have a great week, everybody. We'll see you again soon, and take care of each other.